At 40, almost any polo shirt works. The right size, a decent fabric, a reasonable color, and the job is done. At 50, that calculation changes. Not because polo shirts change, because the man wearing them does. The neck sits differently after 50. The chest settles. The shoulders carry themselves differently. The hair, for most men, has moved towards silver, gray, or salt and pepper. And the polo shirt that worked without thought at 42 requires a more specific choice at 54. Not more effort, more understanding. This video is specifically for men over 50, not a repeat of the basics. 5 specific things about polo shirts that change or need to change after 50, and the choices that make the difference. Number 1. The fabric that works differently on a 50-plus body. The first thing that changes after 50 is which fabric does the most work for you. For most men in their 40s, a classic piqué cotton polo is the right choice. The texture has visual interest, the fabric holds its shape, and it reads as appropriately casual without being soft. At 50 and beyond, there is a second option worth serious consideration that most men have never tried: the merino wool polo. Merino wool does something specific at this stage of life. Where cotton piqué sits slightly away from the body, maintaining its structure at the surface, merino drapes. It follows the line of the torso without clinging, moving with the body rather than holding a fixed shape against it. After 50, when the chest and midsection have naturally shifted from where they sat at 35, this draping quality is not a luxury, it is a practical advantage. Merino also does something with temperature that cotton cannot match. It regulates. A lightweight merino polo worn in the morning when air is cool will not become uncomfortable by midday. For a man over 50 who may run warmer than he did in his 30s, a common physiological shift, this matters more than it sounds. The practical guide. A merino polo in 18 to 21 micron fineness will feel appropriate against the skin without itch. Look for superfine or ultrafine merino on the label. Worn in the same settings as a cotton polo, it reads as a more considered, more refined choice. The kind of upgrade that other men notice without being able to name exactly why. Cotton piqué still works after 50, but merino is the upgrade worth knowing about. Number 2. The collar that flatters a 50-plus neck and face. The second thing that changes after 50 is not whether the collar is structured, that was covered in the basics. It is how open the collar sits and how much it reveals. After 50, the neck changes in ways that affect what a polo collar should do. The muscle tone at the throat softens slightly. The jawline settles. The face has acquired a different proportion than it had at 35. These changes are not problems. They are simply different parameters that affect what looks right. A polo collar buttoned all the way to the top, both buttons closed, tends to compress the visible neck on a man over 50 in a way it did not at 35. The collar sits high, the neckline is tight, and the visual result shortens the apparent length of the neck. A shorter neck reads as a heavier, slightly older impression regardless of the rest of the outfit. One button open, sometimes both, with the collar lying flat and natural, changes what the neck and face communicate. The neck appears longer, the jawline is framed more generously. The overall impression is more relaxed without being less considered. The second collar principle. The collar itself should be wide enough to frame the face without overwhelming it. A very narrow collar on a man over 50 tends to make the face look wider by contrast. A collar with moderate width, not exaggerated, just present, frames the face proportionally and creates a more balanced impression at this age. One open button, a collar with presence. The 2 collar decisions that make a polo work specifically for a 50-plus face and neck rather than against them. Number 3. The colors that work with silver and gray hair. The third thing that changes after 50 is color, but not in the way most men expect. The standard polo color advice covers which tones work for skin. After 50, with silver, gray, or salt and pepper hair in the picture, there is a second dimension to color that becomes as important as skin tone: how the color of the polo interacts with the color of the hair above it. Silver and gray hair is cool-toned by nature. When the polo below it is also cool-toned, a cold gray, a blue-tinted stone, a pale lavender, the hair and the shirt compete in the same register. The hair, which should read as one of the strongest visual features a man over 50 possesses, disappears into the outfit. The overall impression is flat, slightly colorless, slightly older than the man actually is. Warm tones below cool hair create contrast. That contrast is what makes silver hair look distinguished rather than simply gray. A rich camel polo, a warm olive, a deep burgundy, a warm-toned navy, not the cold blue navy, but a navy with warmth in it. Even a warm white rather than a stark cold white. These choices activate the silver hair rather than competing with it. The specific colors that tend to work best for men with silver or gray hair after 50. Camel and warm tan. The warmth lifts the face and contrasts cleanly with silver. Rich burgundy or deep wine adds depth and warmth simultaneously. Warm olive or moss green. Natural earth tones that complement cool hair without fighting it. A deep, warm navy, richer and more golden undertoned than a cold, bright navy. And a warm off-white or cream rather than stark, cold white. After 50, the polo color is not just a choice about the shirt. It is a choice about what the shirt does to everything above it, including the most visible thing about a man at this age. 2 more to go, and the last one is the most specific recommendation in this video. Before we get there, which of these first 3 has changed how you think about your polo shirts? Drop it in the comments. I read every reply. Number 4. Matching polo weight to the setting and season. The fourth thing most men over 50 have never considered about their polo shirts is weight, not as a quality indicator, but as a strategic tool. Most men own polo shirts without thinking about their weight relative to setting and season. They reach for a polo and put it on. At 50, a more deliberate approach to polo weight changes how composed and considered the overall impression reads throughout the year. A lightweight polo, thin cotton or fine jersey under 160 grams, belongs in genuinely hot conditions. High summer, warm climates, active outdoor settings. In those contexts, it performs exactly as intended: breathable, cool, unobtrusive. Worn in any other context, it reads as slightly insubstantial. The fabric lacks the presence to anchor an outfit. The impression is of a man who reached for whatever was closest rather than choosing deliberately. A medium-weight polo, in the 200 to 220 gram range, is the most versatile choice for a man over 50. Heavy enough to hold its shape and drape with intention. Light enough to be comfortable through most conditions outside peak summer heat. This is the weight that works in smart casual settings, in photographs, in situations where a composed impression matters. The fabric has enough body to look like a choice rather than a default. A heavier polo, fine merino or 250-gram cotton, moves into the realm of a layering piece. Worn over a simple undershirt in cooler months, it reads as a knit layer rather than a summer shirt. This creates a more autumn-appropriate impression and extends the polo into seasons most men abandon it. The simple system. Lightweight for summer heat, medium weight for year-round smart casual, heavy merino for cooler months and layering. 3 weights, 3 contexts, always the right impression for the setting. Number 5. The one polo that does everything. After 50, not a rule, a prescription. One specific polo, described in exact detail, that a man over 50 can own with complete confidence across the majority of situations he actually encounters. The fabric is either a fine merino in the superfine range, the kind that drapes and regulates temperature, or a medium-weight Supima cotton in the 200 to 220 gram range. Either drapes rather than clings. Either holds its shape through a full day of wear. Either looks better after 12 months of careful washing than a cheaper polo looks after 2. The collar has moderate width, present enough to frame the face without dominating it. It holds its structure flat without stiffening into a board. It sits naturally open one button without looking deliberately casual. The collar is the part of this polo that a man over 50 will notice most in photographs, and it does its job without requiring any adjustment after the first moment of putting it on. A color that works with silver or salt and pepper hair rather than against it. A color that complements warm or neutral skin undertones rather than draining them. The fit skims. Not tight, not loose. 1 to 2 inches of ease at the side seam. The shoulder seam sitting at the very edge of the shoulder. The hem ending where a tucked or untucked shirt should, just below the waistband, covering cleanly without bunching below. This polo costs more than a polo from a fast fashion retailer. It costs less than most men spend on clothing they wear 3 times and forget about. Worn 3 times a week, cared for correctly, it lasts 5 to 7 years. The cost per wear becomes negligible. The impression it makes every time it is worn does not. After 50, the right polo is not about having more options. It is about understanding one option so clearly that the choice becomes effortless, and the result is consistent every time without having to think about it. So those are the 5. The fabric that works differently on a body after 50, and the upgrade most men have never tried. The collar position that flatters the 50-plus neck and face rather than compressing it. The colors that work with silver and gray hair rather than flattening it. Matching polo weight deliberately to the season and setting. And the one polo described exactly that earns its place in the wardrobe for years. None of these require a complete wardrobe change. Most of them start with understanding what the polo you already own is or is not doing for you, and making one better informed choice the next time. A polo shirt after 50 is not the same purchase as a polo shirt at 35. The shirt is the same. The understanding behind the choice should not be. If this gave you something useful, hit the like button. And if dressing better after 50 actually matters to you, subscribe. Thank you for watching. Stay sharp.